Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
Hello, resilient listeners. Welcome back. We're starting Your Voice Matters, the Resilient with Jen Chambers special series, Week 3, How to Tell Your Story. If you're just joining us, this series is all about helping you craft and share your personal story of resilience. It's almost like a mini memoir. So far, we've covered in Week 1, Shaping Your Story, where we discovered the moments that shaped you. Week 2, where we were shaping your story, structuring your experiences into a powerful, engaging narrative. And today, we're moving into Week 3, Writing with Impact. We're going to talk about how to refine your words, how to strengthen the way you tell a story, and how to create a piece that truly resonates with you and your audience. If you've been following along, you already have that 3-part structure for your story and some key emotional moments that have been mapped out. Now it's time for us to help make your writing more clear, more compelling, and unforgettable. So let's dive in. We're going to start with what makes a story powerful. The best stories stay with us. It's not just because of what happened in the stories, but because of how people tell them. There are 3 elements that make your personal story really, truly impactful. Number 1, authenticity. Does your voice in your writing sound like you? Number 2 is clarity. Are you saying what you mean, but saying it in a way that's easy to understand? Or do you use a lot of big words and confusing phrases to hide behind? That's a hard one. And number 3 is emotion. Are you helping your reader feel what you felt rather than tell them? Today we're going to focus on 3 techniques to help bring those elements to life in your writing. The first is the very, very old show, don't tell. I'm sure you've heard it before, but let's break it down. When we tell people something, we give them a summary. I was terrified when I got the diagnosis. I was so anxious when I ran the red light. But when we show something, we bring readers into the moment. So instead of saying, I was terrified when I got the diagnosis, you could say, my hands shook as I gripped the edges of the chair. The doctor's lips kept moving, but all I heard was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Or instead of saying something about being afraid when you ran the red light, you could say something like, my heart was in my throat and I saw the red and blue lights in my rearview mirror. I knew what was coming. See the difference there? The second example, in both cases, it pulls you in because you're using specific details and physical sensations, as well as trying to really make the listener or the reader kind of be in your shoes. So for the first exercise here, we're going to transform one of your sentences. I want you to go through your work, and you don't have to use a paper copy, but I'd like you to take one sentence from your draft, and I either want you to highlight it with a highlighter or put it in red in your document so it really stands out for you. And I want it to be a sentence that tells how you felt, and then rewrite it to show what you experienced instead. So, for example, if you wrote, I felt hopeless, it's perfectly valid. It's descriptive, sort of. But instead, try asking yourself, what did the hopelessness feel like in my body? What was I doing at that moment? And what details can you include? So your revised sentence, after you think about it for a minute, could instead be, I sat in the dark, staring at the unopened mail on the table. My phone buzzed with messages, but I didn't have the energy to look. It felt like I was sinking into the chair. It felt like I could disappear completely. Now, that sounds a lot more compelling because you're more in it. You can be in that seat and you can stare at that mail. So I want you to try that with your own writing. Underline or highlight a sentence and rewrite it to show exactly how you experienced it. You can even go so far as to do that paragraph by paragraph, and you'll really strengthen your writing that way. Technique number 2. So now we're going to cut out the fluffy stuff. When we write personal things, it's really, really easy to overwrite. When you're overwriting, you add unnecessary things. You put in vague phrases or long-winded explanations. A lot of the time, when you're writing stuff on a computer nowadays, it will highlight it and tell you that you need to revise that area because it's too commonly used. But one of the best ways to make any writing stronger is to cut out the fluffy stuff, all that. Here are some common things you can see when your writing is not specific enough and is full of fluff. You could be using vague words. Really, very, a little, kind of. They are descriptive, but not exactly. You want to revise those to something specific. You could use things that are repetitive phrases. You could say, I remember when I first heard the news, I remember feeling scared. And instead, you could say, when I first heard the news, I felt scared. Now, you can use repetitive phrases as a technique, but you have to use that very sparingly. Another way to be long-winded and fluffy with your writing is using too many adjectives. Instead of saying, the extremely terrifying and incredibly painful experience, which is descriptive, but it's kind of too much, right? So you could try saying the harrowing experience, which gives all of that plus a little bit more. So for our second exercise, I want you to edit your draft for strength. Take a paragraph from your draft and trim unnecessary fluff out of it. Ask yourself when you look at a paragraph or a sentence, can I say this in fewer words? Does every sentence in it add meaning? And am I being as clear as I can and as direct as I can? So here's an example. Before, this is a wordy example. I felt really overwhelmed and kind of unsure of what I should do next because I was in a very difficult situation that seemed impossible to figure out. But you could say the same thing by saying this a lot more strongly. I was stuck. The situation felt impossible. Can you see how the second version is more sharp and more powerful? Saying less is often more. The third technique I want to talk about is writing with your own voice. I was talking about how your story should sound like you and not ChatGPT or someone else's words or a textbook. A few ways to keep your voice authentic when you write. And I've used these myself. I like them. The first one is reading your story out loud. Does your story sound natural to you? Would you say this to a friend? That can also help strengthen the 3-act structure. Just because once you read it out loud, often I will read it to myself and tape it and then play it back. That way you can hear if there, sometimes you get really excited about a story and you miss a step or you miss something that's explanatory, and it can really help if you read it out loud. The next thing is really to use your personality. If you have a sense of humor, let it shine. If you write poetically, embrace that. And I do often recommend that you use humor when possible, because especially if you're talking about something serious, a little bit of humor can kind of balance it out and make it seem more human and less catastrophic. But most importantly, write how you speak. You don't need to use big words. You don't need fancy $10 phrases. Simple and honest is best. So for this third exercise, I want to do a voice check. Take a paragraph from your draft and really truly read it out loud. You don't have to tape it if you don't want to, but ask yourself, does this sound like me? Would I actually say this in a conversation with someone if I was telling them a story? Does it feel natural, or can you tell? You can tell if you're trying too hard, if it sounds like you're trying to be a writer or trying to be something that you're not. You can tell. So if it feels stiff or just not right, rewrite it in your natural voice. Okay, so for your final touches here, now that you've strengthened your writing, and you'll do this over the week, I don't expect you to have it all done today, but I want you to think about some final things. When you're going over your story this week, does every part of your story serve a purpose? Is it advancing your story? That's another way of saying that. Is your story clear? Is your story focused? Especially in something short. Does your story evoke emotions in the reader? Are you showing, not telling? And if you can answer yes to those questions, you're already on your way. So for this week, your homework this week, I want you to revise your draft using the techniques we talked about today. I want you to read it out loud. You don't have to read the whole thing, but at least part of it, to check for the flow. You could read it to someone else that you trust. That's also a really good way. Often I recommend that you do that with a friend or a loved one who's not going to be too critical. And you don't have to share everything, but it helps make you a better writer to hear and see people's reactions to what you write. And the third thing is trim those unnecessary, fluffy words and phrases. Make your writing sharper. So next week, we're going to wrap up this series with sharing your story, how to prepare your piece for readers, and if you want to submit it anywhere, and help you overcome fears of putting your story out into the world. And if you guys enjoy this kind of writing instruction, we can continue with different topics. So I'll look forward to hearing from you about that. I can't wait to hear and see what you're creating. Your story matters, and your voice deserves to be heard. I'll see you next time. If you'd like, you can always contact me via Instagram. And I look forward to hearing from you and talking again next week.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. Sometimes it's all too much. Lost inside the black. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Sometimes we need to lift the voices of those who've overcome and expose the ones that made the choices to stay and fight.